Global warming is caused when solar energy that is absorbed by the Earth's surface is radiated back into the atmosphere. While the heat is attempting to exit the atmosphere, greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide, methane, water vapor, and nitrous oxide absorb a portion of it. While some greenhouse gas levels are important to radiate the planet's heat, too many greenhouse gases in the atmosphere trap too much heat, resulting in excess global warming and a higher average world temperature. Excess greenhouse gases can lead to sea level rise from shrinking ice sheets, melting glaciers, and decreased snow cover. They can also lead to extreme weather events like hurricanes and typhoons, and it can also lead to ocean acidification, which can negatively harm the biodiversity of the oceans. So for thousands of years, the carbon dioxide level has been fluctuating between 180 and 300 parts per million. In 1950, the carbon dioxide level surpassed the 300 parts per million threshold, and today it currently sits at its level of approximately 400 parts per million. So where do these emissions come from? According to the United States Environmental Protection Agency, electricity production accounts for 31% of emissions, transportation accounts for 27%, industries burning fossil fuels account for 21%, commercial and residential emissions account for 12% of the total, and agriculture accounts for the remaining 9%.
So the first economic principle of climate change is externality. This is defined as a consequence of economic activity that is experienced by unrelated third parties. Externalities are the core of environmental economics, and climate change, since they take place around us every single day, they're divided between positive and negative externalities. Now, for example, according to a 3-year experiment that was conducted by Stanford, global warming may prove beneficial to plant growth as plants utilize carbon dioxide for plant nutrition that causes them to grow faster. As a result, agriculture is enhanced, as well as production, and the GDP of the economy rises. On the other hand, though, the increase of greenhouse gas emissions released into the atmosphere decreases the pH level of the ocean. In this case, the negative externality is the fact that as the ocean becomes more acidic, fish stock is affected, which ultimately negatively impacts aqua farming and decreases the GDP of the respective economy. That is especially if the economy is dependent upon agriculture, such as developing countries. The next crucial economic principle of climate change is market failure. Market failure is defined as a situation where in any given market, the quantity demanded by consumers does not equate to the quantity supplied by suppliers. In other words, the market fails when the participating agents in a market fail to reach an efficient outcome. If, for example, a factory that releases harmful air pollutants has a detrimental effect on the health of the people that live around and breathe the same air. In this case, the quantity demanded of clean air, which is a public good, does not equate to the quantity supplied, which causes the market to fail. As a result, the government steps in to correct the market by regulating and taxing the factory so as to reflect the negative externality on the social cost.
A carbon tax program is basically where you tax every metric ton of carbon that's produced through emissions, and different types of pollution that are accounted for are methane, nitrous oxide, and carbon dioxide. And these are the 3 that are released in the atmosphere. And the 2 that exempted are commercial aviation and shipping. Anything that's released in the atmosphere from these 2 aren't really taxed through the carbon tax program. And it just shows an example, like for if you increase money and you increase taxes on strictly for a carbon tax program, other taxes would have to decrease for the economy to work for it to focus actually strictly on carbon tax programs. And this is also just a quick example of showing how if the demand for carbon tax program went up, the price for emissions would also go down. But if the demand decreased, the price for emissions would also increase. Second type of real-world emission reduction we're going to talk about is European union emissions trade systems. Basically, it's known as a cap and trade system, where you have a certain amount of raw materials in an environment, and you have to decide how much is going to be too much for a company to produce in a certain year or a certain time period. And you have 30 companies right now that are in the largest emissions for trade systems. And basically, if you're over this cap, you have to pay a fee to produce emissions, and if you're under this cap, you pay a certain fee for emission permits.